Hello, welcome to Piano Q&A. My name is Nancy Allred, and I am just excited and privileged to share some of my teaching tips with piano teachers and piano students. I've had questions recently about how to know the level of literature for different piano students. I teach at Dixie State University and just finished this past year teaching Piano Pedagogy 1 and then in the fall, and Piano Pedagogy 2 in the spring. And we spent a whole semester discussing all the different facets of teaching the elementary student in Piano Pedagogy 1, and then in Piano Pedagogy 2 during spring we talked about teaching the intermediate level student. One of the first questions I'm asked is number one, how do you know when you are ready to move to intermediate literature? So my answer to most teachers is, number one, if a student is excelling and doing well in whatever method you're using, whether it be Faber or Bastien or Alfred or all the wonderful methods that are out there, keep doing it. And I suggest that you use the lesson and recital or lesson and performance books and theory if you can, and some kind of technique. And if you do all those different facets of teaching, the student will usually stay focused and motivated and be able to keep progressing. I did find this past year, with all of us enduring this global pandemic, that it was more difficult than normal to keep the interest and motivation of our wonderful piano students. So I have a stack on my piano of motivating pieces, fun pieces, and have pulled it out a lot for many students. So that's fun. So the first thing I say is go through the method, the elementary beginning method that you're using as far as you can. And they all have different levels, so I won't try to summarize that. Whichever method you're using, you know where it is. I started my teaching in the 80s, so I'm dating myself. So I guess I've taught 35 plus years. And back when I was teaching, the number one method of choice for teachers, at least I did a survey way back in Utah, was the Alfred Basic Piano Library. And so I used a lot of Alfred. I also used the music the music tree, and I also used some Bastien. And so those were the choices that I kind of gravitated toward when I began teaching. I also myself, I learned on Lila Fletcher, and my siblings, most of them went through the Michael Aaron course book. I've also used a little bit of John Thompson. I received my doctorate in Kansas City, and way back, John Thompson was the dean of the Conservatory in Kansas City, and so I learned a great appreciation for what he did for piano teaching. So that's just my background. I usually tell pedagogy students that I believe all the methods out there are just wonderful. And to me, if you teach whatever method you choose and you teach it well, you're probably going to be successful. That's number one. Number two, if a student is lacking in motivation, then maybe that is time for a change, or you may simply just need to supplement. And so we talk a lot in my pedagogy classes about supplementing and what are some of these fun pieces that you can find. So again, take the method as far as you can go. because they're all very sound, and they teach theory principles along that will help you. I mean, obviously you teach them, but go as far as you can. My red flag, if you will, on a student when it's time to branch off from the beginning methods into intermediate level is when I can't seem to get them motivated, or they're kind of lagging. And so I find that sometimes that change will help them. So I typically, I'll just give an example. When I was teaching out of the Alfred method, I typically would get through at least level 3. It does go up through 6. I found that sometime in level 4 or 5 is when the students seem to start losing interest in the pieces. So that's when I would keep them going in that method, but I would begin adding the intermediate literature, or repertoire, as we say. Back then, I used Jane Magrath had the all the levels of the Masterwork Classics, all the way up through level 10. And I began using those because I could correlate those with the method books. And I typically would, at the end of Alfred level 3, I would have them buy the Masterwork Classics level 3 and start doing those pieces. So, and Jane Magrath has, let me find the years, she has a suggested order of study for the Masterworks Classics, and that really helped me in my beginning years in teaching. I didn't teach every single piece in this book, but I taught a lot of them, and as the years passed, I found the pieces that the students tended to love and would gravitate toward those. And of course, then there's other pieces that some students love and some students don't. And so you kind of get a feel, and then you get a feel for the student's personality and what they like. So those are the Masterwork Classics. Again, I would go through the method all the way if a student was motivated and could do that. If not, I began supplementing with the intermediate literature. The other literature books that I taught a lot out of are the Bastien piano literature series, and there are 6 volumes. And I typically would start in volume 1. Same thing, probably about the end of level 3 in Alfred. If you're in the Bastien series, probably about the end of level 3 or on into level 4, I would start supplementing with these intermediate pieces. And or in Faber, same thing, probably around book 3, I would start introducing some of these intermediate and the classics from the great composers. So that's what I would do. When I first started teaching, they only had these 4 volumes, and then at some point they released the volume 5 and 6, which are into the advanced levels. The other piano literature repertoire books that I love are the Kjos Snell, and I just pulled some out of my files. So Kjos Snell, published by Kjos, starts at the prep level and then goes on all the way up through level 10. And in each level, there is a Baroque and classical, Romantic and 20th century, and then there's also an etude book, which a lot of these have a little Czerny etude. And so we have all 3 of those books. And he also correlates and has the scale skills book, so you have the technique. If I'm honest, I don't use these very much. I don't use prep or even level 1 very much. If a student needs supplemental instruction with the piano method, I do use this a little bit. But I don't use Kjos Snell usually until about level 2, which I would use with most of the beginning methods when they're in level 3. I know this is a little confusing, but in all these years of teaching, I have found that the pieces in an intermediate leveled series don't necessarily correlate exactly with the beginning methods. And so level 3 in any beginning method is my departure at the end of that point of departure if I need one at that point. And so I love the Kjos Snell. Again, you have a Baroque and Classical, Romantic 20th Century, and the Etudes for each level, plus the Scale Skills book. And they're just wonderful. One of the questions I get a lot from teachers is, again, how do you know? I don't know that any of these methods are better than the intermediate repertoire, if you will, or better. I don't know if Bastien's necessarily better than Snell or the Masterwork Classics. They all have a wonderful selection of literature. The nice thing about them is they're leveled within their own series. And so as a teacher, if you begin teaching, like for instance this Bastien volume 1, these pieces are mostly level 2, 3, and 4, if you will. And so if you go through these books, you'll get a sense of these levels. If you use Kjos Snell, the same thing, you'll get a sense of these levels. And I will teach as many pieces as a student can in each of these books. And I don't necessarily teach all of them. I try to teach about half of them. And I know I'm ready to move on to the next level when the pieces start to become fairly easy, and the students are learning them in a week or two. Then you think, okay, because when they get into the intermediate levels, then they're going to spend usually several weeks or even a couple of months on a piece, and so if they're learning it and it's almost perfecto within a week or two, then they're ready to move up and have some more challenges. So again, I don't think it matters which collection of intermediate repertoire that you use, but use a selection, and that will help you navigate through the levels. I will do another video where we talk about the various levels of elementary and intermediate, and a little bit of the advanced, and what I've learned also, and we'll kind of go from there. So thank you. Let me know if you have any questions.